Okay, welcome to this video of A.L. Basham's anthology piece in the RS Religious Studies A-level anthology work in Buddhism. And this is section 19 of the anthology. We're going to read it and then analyze it. So, the householder told no one of the poor man was his son, and ordered one of his servants to tell the poor man that he was free to go where he chose. The poor man was amazed that he was allowed to go free, and he went off to the poor quarter of the town in search of food and clothing. Now, in order to attract him back, the rich man made use of the virtue of skill in means. He called two men of low caste and of no great dignity and told them, "Go to that poor man and hire him in your own names, and do the work in my house at double the normal daily wage. And if he asks what work he has to do, tell him that he has to help clear away the refuse dump." So these two men and the poor man cleared the refuse every day in the house of the rich man, and lived. And the rich man lived in a straw hut nearby. And the rich man saw through a window his son clearing refuge, and was again filled with compassion. So he came back and took off his wreath and jewels and rich clothes, and put on dirty garments, and covered his body with dust. And taking a basket in his hand, he went up to his son, and he greeted him at a distance and said, "Take this basket and clear away the dust at once." So let's have a look at this text here. What is the phrase being said here? The phrase "the householder" indicate a reference to. So the householder told no one the poor man was his son. What's that all about? Well, the householder is a reference to, in Brahmanism, in the time of the Buddha, or what we would call Hinduism today, the second Purusharthara, or of the four duties in life, uh, was the householder stage, the ashrama stage of life, was to look after, if you're a man, to economically protect your family, to raise children if you're a woman, very structured way of social ethics, and so on. And so this is a well-known idea in India, certainly, and beyond, the householder. Um, in Buddhism, Theravada teach you should renounce the householder way of life, which was a very frankly a female-affirming view. Um, Renunciation in Theravada was a very male-centric way of doing religion. And Theravada teach in particular that such renunciation was required if you want to even begin the four stages of the Arhat path, which you should know and be able to recount. The stream enterer, the once returner, the non-returner, and the worthy one, or Arhat. So here, the Lotus Sutra of and Mahayana are rejecting the need for renunciation, which is itself a virtue in Theravada. It's not one of the six virtues referred to in the Lotus Sutra, or later 10 virtues in the Tathagata Garbha Sutra. No, it's not a virtue to renounce your householder way of life. You don't need to be a monk in order to gain enlightenment, or as it's understood in Mahayana, as Bodhisattva, the awakened mind, maybe as Tathagata Garbha, to your Buddha nature, to realize the true nature within us. All of this developing alongside this Trikiya idea of the true nature of all things. So all of this continued visceral, polemical, rhetoric, ethos attack on the nature of Theravada. What does it say next? He's just amazed, and the poor man was amazed. He was allowed to go free and went off to the poor quarter town in search of food and clothing. So in the previous section, the father's ordered his servants, tell the poor man that he's free to go where he chose. Aren't we Mahayana? Aren't we amazing? We're so magnanimous. We build up our credibility. We tear down the other one's lack of credibility, their lack of character, their lack of virtue, by describing the poor man's departure, even while with the king and all the riches of Mahayana doctrine. In other words, the poor man, i.e. Theravada, just can't handle the truth. They can't accept the full truth of the Buddha's hidden teaching discovered, was it in the 8,000 lines of 100 BC, or Nargajunas and Yataveda, or was it in the Lotus Sutras, 150 AD, textual ideas of dependent origination, and so on. What is the key Lotus Sutra polemical theme going on here that the narrative returns to again and again rhetorically to positively build up Mahayana virtue? Now let's have a look at what does it say. In order to attract him back, the rich man made use of the virtue of skill in means, upaya. You should know this. So here's the key Lotus Sutra theme, upaya. We've commented on upaya and the burning house narrative. You should be able to know that and have looked at it. The Bodhisattva may mean that the Mahayana changes his message to suit the audience, as Avalokitesvara will do. He changes his shape, becomes a monk to help those who can't accept him in his full glory. So this shows the awareness the Mahayana have, that Theravada don't, of their Buddha nature, of sunyata, of compassion, their riches, what makes them rich. So what's the function of the polemical goals and of Mahayana rhetoric? He called two of the men of low caste and of no great dignity, told him, go to the poor man and hire him to your own names and do the work of my house, double the normal wage. The narrative here is all about justifying Mahayana greatness, the rhetoric of our credibility, our ethos, and the smallness of the Hinayana or Theravada. This continued visceral, seductive narrative, and it now referred to upaya, just as the Mahayana and the Bodhisattva will lie or fabric truth to help others. So the subterfuge, the deceit of the father is a good thing. If the Theravada can only accept small rewards, i.e. the Four Noble Truths and other typical beliefs of Mahayana Theravada, well, so be it, rather than the whole riches of Mahayana. So Mahayana is able to compromise their offer to the Theravada because they can't accept much. In the early centuries of India AD, the political movement was a sort of divide and conquer, as Mahayana monks alongside their fellow Theravada monks vied for control of viharas in Sri Lanka and in the mainland of India, and especially for the patronage of kings. And at the beginning, at least, it seems Theravada were pretty much dominated. In the same way, in the pre-Second World War, think of the example of this: the German confessing church jockeyed with the Reich German Christians church for influence in German and over German Christianity. It's really interesting. Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his story and all that, the stuff that we don't hear about. Similar sorts of jockeying there as an example. And we go to any number of places to show this. The Arianists versus the Nicenists in the 4th century, 325 in the Nicene Creed, and 381 in the second version, which got rid of the Arianists, very political practices. How does the Mahayana Lotus Sutra develop negative polemical rhetoric using satire to undermine Theravada credibility? So where's the satire here? Let's show you this here. And if he asks what work he has to do, tell him he has to clear away the refuge dump. So, brilliant. The message here is quite amusing. Theravada are being tasked with clearing away their own beliefs. Their teaching is rubbish, and the best they can do is hope to clear away their own teachings. This is really really clever satire, common rhetorical device in religious polemics. Think Elijah and the prophets of Baal in the Old Testament. Is Baal on the toilet? Is he on a journey? Why is your offering not exploded with fire? And later his does, as the fire of God falls and they kill all the prophets of Baal. So, what was the institutional reality during the time the Lotus Sutra was being composed, 50 AD, and so on? Well, let's just point out a couple of bits here. So, these two men, the poor man cleared out with refuge every day in the house of the rich man and lived in a straw hut nearby. So, even though they're living together, one has karuna, compassion, i.e., Mahayana, the rich man, a kind of emotion and feeling of the Bodhisattva, supernaturally endowed disposition towards those who are in the same building, but whose building in reality is metaphorically burning because they are poor, and so on. What is the compassion of the Lotus Sutra that is being spoken of here? The rich man saw through a window his clearing refuge and was again filled with compassion. There it is, great idea there. Of course, this is karuna, compassion, that is being referred to, the supernatural disposition towards those in the burning house. What does the Lotus Sutra describe what the Father in the end doing, and what does this suggest about Mahayana belief? Well, he says he came down. Look at that. He came down, took off his wreath and jewels and rich clothes, put on dirty garments, covered up his body with dust. Taking the basket in hand, he went up to his son and greeted him with a distance. He said, "Take this basket," and cleared away the dust at once. And there we go. What fabulously rich, seductive language. Mahayana believe they have to condescend, accommodate themselves to the less-able, dim-witted Theravada. But they willingly do so because they're the ones with greater compassion. They're the ones who've greater wisdom and need to do so out of paternalistic love and compassion, unconditionally love the other. I mean, there are echoes here of so much in this text. Now, Basham would want to draw our attention to the way in the Bible, in the Luke 17, Jesus' parable of the rich man and the poor man. So and the son, the prodigal son, how the father does this sort of thing. What I'd point out here is this word dust, 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 rubbish, dust. We get it mentioned a lot here. The dust, the dust. Okay, the dirt and the refuge. All of this being a reference to Theravada teaching and practice. So that was section 19. Key phrase here is karuna, the idea of compassion. One of the four Brahma Viharas, something that in the end is a supernatural disposition given to us by other bodhisattvas, a kind of religious experience almost of a deep sense within of love towards the other.